I wasn't supposed to be home that day. My manager called in sick, and the site was short on parts anyway. So by noon I was in my car, halfway through a sandwich, thinking I'd surprise her. Not in the flowers and chocolates kind of way, more like drop by, maybe take her out for a coffee, break the routine. We hadn't had one of those afternoons in a while. The house looked normal from the outside. Same trash bins by the curb, same Amazon box half-soaked under the porch bench. But as soon as I turned the key, I knew in my chest, that I wasn't alone in that house. Not in the someone broke in way, not in the you forgot you invited the plumber kind of way either. Felt lived in, but not by me. I stepped inside. It smelled like expensive soap and someone else's shower. Not citrus. Not vanilla. Something unfamiliar. The kind of scent that clings, tries too hard. The smell of someone trying to erase their tracks with designer body wash. A wet towel was hanging over the kitchen chair. The air was damp. Someone had just been here. My boots thudded against the hardwood as I walked through the living room. 2 mugs in the sink. Both used. One of them had lipstick I didn't recognize. Not the deep wine red she usually wore. This one was pale. Nude. Subtle. Like whoever wore it didn't want to be noticed. I stood there, staring at the sink, and something in me felt outside of time. Like my body had moved ahead and my brain was trying to catch up. That's when I noticed the sweater. Black. Small. Slung over the back of our dining chair like it belonged there. I'd never seen it before. I picked it up, felt the fabric. Soft like it was made to be touched. And just then I heard a buzz. A very soft buzz. Not a phone. Something quieter. Something intimate. It was coming from the couch cushions. I walked over, lifted them one by one. Buried between the 3rd and 4th cushion was a small, black remote with a tiny red light blinking at the top. I didn't recognize it, but I didn't need to. My mind was already painting the picture. I didn't sit down. I didn't call her. I walked up the stairs, slow, listening, half expecting to hear whispering or a shuffle or anything. But there was nothing. Our bedroom was empty. Our bed was made. I opened the closet. Empty hangers. Half her clothes were gone. I opened the dresser. The drawer with her underwear wiped clean. Gone. Not even a single stray sock left. The bathroom? Her side of the sink looked like no one had ever used it. Not a brush, not a bottle, not even her contact lens case. That's when I saw the envelope, propped up neatly on my pillow, like a joke. It wasn't sealed. Inside was a single photo. Not a selfie. Not some vacation memory. A man, shirtless, grinning, holding something in his hand, something I recognized all too well from our locked drawer. Something I never thought would leave that drawer. The photo was labeled in Sharpie, your wife's favorite toy. I didn't shout. Didn't throw anything. I stared at it. Not for seconds. Minutes. Letting the weight of it sink in. I could feel something inside me harden. Not snap. Not break. Just calcify. I packed her things in 30 minutes. All of it. Shoes, scarves, jewelry she thought I didn't notice. The small crystal ring box she swore was her safe space. Every last scrap of her. Into trash bags and boxes. I left the photo of that man on the bed taped to the headboard. Next to it, a note written in thick black pen on the back of one of her old birthday cards. It read, "Hope you enjoyed it." I didn't wait for her to come back. I didn't want to see her face contort into one of her lies. I grabbed the photo, her bags, and walked out. Locked the door. Tossed the spare key into the sewer grate at the end of the street. Drove 2 hours out of town to my brother's place. Told him everything. We stayed up late. Didn't talk much. Just let silence say what words couldn't. The next morning, she texted. Just one word. Where? She didn't say what she meant. Where am I? Where's her stuff? Where's the photo? Where's the fake life she thought I'd keep sleeping through? I didn't answer. Not yet. Because the real confrontation hadn't even started. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. Even at my brother's place, curled up on a couch that smelled like his dog and cheap fabric spray, I just stared at the ceiling. The TV buzzed in the background, playing some late-night infomercial about knives that cut through bricks. I watched the guy slice that cinder block 10 times in a row, over and over, like my mind needed to see something break. The next morning, her messages started to pour in. No apologies. No explanations. Just variations of, where did you go? What did you do with my stuff? Why are you doing this? Is this a joke? A joke. I sat there with my coffee turning cold, reading her words like they belonged to someone I'd never met. The woman I married would never write those texts. But then again, maybe she was never that woman to begin with. Maybe I'd just been sleeping next to a mask for all those years. By noon, she called. I didn't pick up. Then again. And again. Then my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. I answered. Is this Daniel? The man asked. His voice was weirdly calm, like he wasn't sure if I was real. Yeah, I said. Silence. Then I didn't think she'd go through with it. I'm sorry, man. My throat tightened. You're the one in the photo? Pause. Yeah. I didn't know she was married until after the first time. I swear. She told me you were her ex, said you lived in another state. I leaned back on the couch, stared at the ceiling again. She said we'd been separated for a year, he added, almost whispering it like a confession. We hadn't been. We'd had dinner 3 nights ago. Watched a dumb movie. She laughed when I kissed her shoulder. You knew enough to send me that photo, I said. He didn't answer that. Instead, he said, I found your number in her phone. Under insurance. That's what she saved you as. I laughed. I actually laughed. Like the sound just slipped out of me sideways. I wasn't her husband. I was her emergency contact for damage control. He kept talking. Said he ended things with her when he found out the truth. Said she kept coming back, though. Showing up, calling late at night. Told him she was going to end it soon. Said she needed time. Time for what? To rehearse a better lie? To rewrite the ending so she could still come out the victim? I hung up before he could finish his sentence. I didn't care what else he had to say. He wasn't the problem anymore. He was just another piece of wreckage floating in the wake of her storm. But now I was angry. Not just numb. Not confused. Not broken. Angry. So I drove back. Not to make peace. Not to scream. To watch her squirm. I knew she'd be waiting. I parked a block away. Walked the rest of the way in the cold. Hoodie pulled up. Hood over my head like I was walking into a robbery. Maybe I was. She was sitting on the porch. Hair messy. Face flushed. Her phone in her lap like it was a grenade that hadn't gone off yet. She stood when she saw me. Where the hell have you been? That was her opener. Not are you okay? Not let me explain. I walked past her without a word. Unlocked the door. And let it swing open behind me. She followed, quick footsteps like she was scared I'd vanish again. The living room was empty. I cleared out everything with her scent on it. No coat on the rack. No makeup bag on the coffee table. No clutter. The ghost of her life had already been exorcised. She looked around, confused. Where's my stuff? She asked, voice cracking. Gone, I said. Like the truth. Her mouth opened, but I cut her off. Insurance? I asked, holding up my phone. That's what I am to you? She flinched, tried to play dumb. What are you talking about? I pulled out the photo, tossed it on the table like a dead fish. Color drained from her face. She stared at it, not like she was ashamed, more like she was calculating what to say next. You went through my stuff? That was what she chose. That was her defense. I found your boyfriend, I said. He told me everything. Her eyes flicked left, then right, like she was checking for exits. He's not. Don't. My voice dropped. Don't lie. You've already lost the right to rewrite this. Silence. Then she muttered something I'll never forget. You were boring. You made everything so easy. I stopped feeling anything. That was it. That was her big reveal. She looked me in the eyes and said it like she was reading a weather report. And I felt nothing. Just a slow, spreading chill in my chest. The kind that tells you a door's been shut behind you forever. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just said, I hope he made you feel something. Because now you've got nothing. Then I walked past her. Out the door. Her voice followed me down the porch steps. Wait, Daniel, wait, we can talk, just wait. But I didn't wait, and I didn't stop walking until her voice was a smear behind me. She shouted once, my name, sharp like it could still pull me back. But it couldn't. I think she realized it too, because after that, there was just silence. Like the house itself had swallowed her whole. I didn't go back to my brother's. I needed air, not conversation. I drove. Nowhere in particular. Just let the streets bleed into each other until I couldn't recognize where I was. Gas station coffee. Open highway. Static on the radio. Around 11 p.m., I parked at some overlook on the edge of town. Nobody there but me and a flickering vending machine that looked like it hadn't been stocked since the Bush administration. City lights blinked in the distance like stars with jobs. I took out my phone. 15 missed calls. 9 messages. All her. You're being ridiculous. We need to talk like adults. This doesn't have to be the end. Can you just admit you were distant first? I messed up. Okay? But you don't walk away from a whole life over one mistake. Dan, I'm scared. Where are you? Please. I need to see you. You can't do this to me. It wasn't supposed to go this far. That last one hit different. It wasn't supposed to go this far. What was supposed to happen then? Was he just a placeholder? A toy for the weekends while I paid the bills and fixed the leaky sink and asked how her day was going without realizing the whole thing had turned into a performance? I didn't answer any of her messages. Instead, I sent one text to someone else. Her younger sister, Ava. We weren't close, but we got along. She always had this quiet way of seeing through people. Last Thanksgiving, I remember her watching the two of us, me carving turkey, her pouring wine for everyone, that fake laugh she had when she wanted to sound interested in anything I was saying, and Ava looked at me like she already knew. Maybe she did. I texted, you might want to check in on your sister. She's not in a good place. 2 minutes later, she called me. Straight to the point. What happened? She's been lying. For a long time. Silence. I figured, she said eventually. She used to talk about you like you were air. Then one day she stopped mentioning your name. Just started posting pictures of herself with captions like healing season and living soft. No tags. No you. She cheated. I know. That was it. No gasp. No denial. Just a simple, tired truth. She thinks she's the main character in every room, Ava added, like it was a fact she'd memorized long ago. But you? You were real. That was the difference. I sat with that for a moment. The vending machine buzzed behind me, blinking out of order like some sad metaphor. Then she said something that made my jaw clench. She's trying to twist it now, telling Mom that you emotionally abandoned her, that she was basically living as a single woman. I didn't even laugh. I just nodded. Of course that's what she'd say. She ever tell you about the notebook? I asked. No. There was this little red notebook she kept in her nightstand. Said it was her journal. I never looked inside. Trusted her. She used to write in it before bed sometimes. I thought it was cute. I thought about that notebook a lot lately. Was it filled with love poems? Dreams? Or just names and places and schedules? Ava asked if I needed anything. I told her no. She said she'd check in with her sister, but not for her sake, for mine. Just so I'd know she wasn't going to show up at my door in the middle of the night pretending to be a different version of herself. We hung up, and for the first time in 2 days I felt still. Not peace, not closure, but still. I turned my phone off, slept in my car, and when I woke up, I knew exactly what I was going to do next, because this wasn't going to end with silence. She wanted a conversation. She was going to get one. But it would be on my terms. I showed up unannounced. Not out of revenge. Not out of rage. I just wanted to see her in the aftermath. I needed to know what kind of woman could burn her life down and then still sleep at night like nothing ever happened. It was late afternoon. Gray sky. That dull kind of cold that doesn't bite. Just lingers on your skin like regret. Her car was in the driveway, crooked. Driver's door still halfway open like she ran inside in a panic. Curtains drawn. Lights off. I rang the bell once. No answer. Then again 3 slow knocks. I heard shuffling, then silence. Then the door cracked open, just enough for her eyes to show. And those eyes, those familiar, lying eyes, lit up with something twisted between relief and fear. "I thought you blocked me," she said. "I did," I replied. "You just never stopped trying." She opened the door wider, standing there in some oversized sweater I'd never seen before, probably his. Hair tied back. No makeup. She looked softer than usual, but not in a way that made me feel anything. It was like staring at a wax figure, something once alive. "I didn't think you'd come back," she said. "You're not that unpredictable," I told her. "You just think you are." She didn't like that. Her jaw tightened. I stepped inside without asking. The place was a wreck. Boxes opened. Some of her things thrown across the table. The living room rug was bunched up like she'd been pacing in circles for hours. "What is this?" she asked, arms crossed. "This," I said, "is the last thing I owe you." I reached into my coat and pulled out the USB. She narrowed her eyes. "What's that?" "Every voicemail you left me in the last 48 hours. Every message. Every lie. Every version of the truth you tried to sell." She didn't reach for it. I tossed it on the table next to her old planner. The same one where she used to write our weekend plans. Birthdays. Grocery lists. I flipped it open. Her handwriting was there, looping and dramatic, like every word was meant to be read aloud. But the pages for the last 2 months were empty. "You stopped planning anything with me in December," I said. "You remember what I asked you on New Year's Eve?" She didn't speak. "I asked if you still loved me. You laughed and said I was being dramatic." I remember that laugh. I believed it. She opened her mouth and I could see a dozen excuses lined up behind her tongue like actors waiting to perform. I didn't let her speak. "You had so many opportunities to leave," I continued. "You could have told me you weren't happy, that you were seeing someone else. You could have spared me the theater." "You think it was that easy?" she snapped. There it was. The mask cracking. "You think I wanted this to happen?" "No," I said. "You wanted everything. Him. Me. The comfort. The thrill. You just didn't want to pay the cost." "I made a mistake." "No." You repeated a decision. "A mistake is forgetting to lock the door. You lived this." She stepped back like I'd hit her. Good. She should have felt it. Just once. The sting of truth without a soft landing. "I'm not the villain you're making me out to be," she said, quieter now. "But you're not the victim you keep pretending to be either." Her shoulders dropped. "I was scared," she whispered. "So was I said. "Every day. Scared I wasn't enough. Scared I was missing something. Scared you'd wake up one day and realize you deserved better." She looked up. Eyes glossy now. That old tactic. But I wasn't bending. "I thought I had time," she said. "To figure it out. To fix it. You used time to hide." We stood there, just staring at each other. No yelling. No tears. Just the wreckage between us, finally exposed. And then she did something that confirmed everything. She asked, "So, are you going to forgive me?" Like that was the whole point of this. Like this was a math problem I could solve by erasing enough chalk. I smiled. "For me to forgive you," I said, "you'd have to understand what you actually destroyed." And I turned around. This time I didn't slam the door. I didn't need drama. I gave her the quiet she deserved. The kind that echoes. And as I walked back to my car, she didn't follow. Not this time point. 3 days passed. She didn't call. Didn't text. Not a whisper. But that didn't mean she was quiet. The storm had only shifted direction. It started with mutual friends. People I hadn't heard from in months suddenly popping up in my DMs with carefully worded concern. You could almost smell the manipulation baked into every message. "Hey man, I don't know all the details, but she's really upset. I think she's going through a lot right now. She told me you left out of nowhere. What happened? She said you've been distant lately. Like not really present." "Present? I paid every bill in that house. Cooked when she wouldn't. Checked in on her when she'd go quiet for hours only to come back smiling like nothing happened. I wasn't distant, I was drowning while holding her above water, and she still said she couldn't breathe. I didn't respond to any of them. Let her build her version of the story. Let them believe I snapped out of nowhere, packed her things in trash bags, and ghosted her. I had something better than their approval. I had peace. But peace doesn't mean silence. On the fourth day, I got a call from my job's HR department. "Hey, Daniel, everything all right at home?" "Why?" "Well, someone called and said you might be going through something. That you've been emotionally unstable lately. Just checking in." Unstable. I could have laughed if I wasn't so tired. She was laying down preemptive strikes, trying to paint the image of a man cracking under pressure. A man who'd walked away from a good woman for no reason at all. Smart. Strategic. Sick. I told them everything was fine. Said I was taking a few days off, which was true. I needed distance. Real, clean distance. That night, I drove to my storage unit on the edge of town. The one she didn't know about. It was meant to be temporary. Just a place to keep my dad's old tools and some furniture from before we moved in together. But now it was my vault. My sanctuary. I brought the photo with me. The one her lover had sent me. I studied it again under the fluorescent lights of that storage unit, like it was some kind of ancient relic. His smug face. The object in his hand. The way the note on the back was written like a trophy inscription. "Your wife's favorite toy." I've been thinking about that phrase for days. How proud he must have felt. How sure of his place in her life he must have been to send it. But what stuck with me the most was this: she didn't even deny it. She didn't say that's not true. Didn't say he's lying. Didn't say I never loved him. She only said, "I thought I had time. Are you going to forgive me?" I was scared. Everything she said was about her. And it finally landed. She never saw me. Not really. To her, I was just a backdrop. A steady hand. A placeholder for real passion she could chase in the dark while still keeping her name on the lease and her clothes in our closet. She never loved me. She loved the version of herself she got to be when she stood next to me. That was the moment I decided something. This story wouldn't end with silence. She wanted people to see her as the wounded one? Fine. Let them see the rest. Not out of revenge, but because truth should leave a stain. I pulled out a folder from the storage box. Copies of everything. Photos. Screenshots. The photo her lover sent me printed twice. Her messages. His messages. Her voice notes. I wasn't going to post them online. I wasn't going to burn her publicly. But I was going to send them, sealed and direct, to the few people she was lying to the loudest. Her mother. Her boss. 2 of our closest mutual friends. And one of her exes who she once told me never let her be herself. I wasn't trying to destroy her life. Just correct the version she was selling. I mailed them the next morning. No return address. Then I went home. To my new apartment. My new bed. My quiet walls. And I waited. Not for her to reach out, but for the silence to finally mean something. The fallout began faster than I expected. The first message hit my inbox at 8:17 a.m., a simple, sharp line from our old friend Maya. "Is this real?" I didn't respond. By noon I had 5 more. One from her cousin who used to always say I was too calm for someone married to a walking firecracker. One from a friend of hers I barely knew who just wrote, "She told me you cheated first." I feel like an idiot now. The most unexpected one came around 3 p.m., a long, rattled email from her boss, of all people. He thanked me for bringing this to light, said he was reviewing internal matters, and my favorite part, he'd always sensed a discrepancy between her words and behavior. A discrepancy. That was generous. She'd been working overtime to paint herself as some wronged woman reinventing herself after years of neglect. Using company retreats to take photos in filtered lighting, talking about stepping into her truth. And here I was, apparently the shadow holding her back from the sun. Not anymore. I hadn't heard from her directly in nearly a week, but the silence had turned radioactive. I could feel her scrambling behind the scenes, trying to figure out where the cracks were, how the story had leaked. She probably knew it was me. But how could she prove it without revealing everything? That was the beauty of it. The walls were closing in and she couldn't scream without admitting what she'd done. That night, I got a knock at my new apartment. I froze. Not because I was afraid, because I knew who it was before I even got up. I opened the door. There she stood. No coat. No makeup. Hair wet like she'd been crying in the car or pacing in the rain. Her eyes didn't look broken. They looked cornered. "Can I come in?" I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "Why?" She blinked. That delay in her answer, it said more than anything she would eventually try to say. I need to talk to you. Without all the noise." "You mean without the truth getting in the way?" She flinched. But again, no denial. "People are turning on me," she said. "Maybe they're just seeing you for the first time." She stepped forward. "I don't want us to end like this. You ended us the second you gave yourself to someone else and called it confusion." "I didn't give myself to him. It wasn't like that." I cut her off with one sentence. One line I'd rehearsed for days. "He sent me the photo, remember?" She opened her mouth, closed it again, and then finally she dropped the act. Her voice got low, sharp. Not sad anymore. Not pitiful. Real. "I messed up. I did. But so did you. You shut down. You made everything routine. You acted like love was a list of chores. I needed more. And instead of telling me, you took what you needed from someone else." I replied, just as flat. Silence. Then she said it. The sentence I'll remember until I forget my own name. "I didn't think you'd leave." Not really. There it was. The whole truth. I wasn't a husband to her. I was a constant, a background hum, a man-shaped security blanket who was supposed to stay, no matter how much she twisted the knife. "You weren't supposed to find out like that," she added, softer now. "He was just a moment. He sent me a photo labeled your wife's favorite toy. That wasn't a moment. That was a pattern." She looked away. I stepped aside, not to let her in, to step out and close the door behind me. "This isn't your story anymore," I said. "You don't get to decide how it ends." She reached for my arm. I pulled back. "You never really loved me, did you?" I asked. "I loved you," she whispered, "but not enough to stop." "No," and she said it like that. One word. Cold. Simple. She didn't cry. She didn't chase me when I turned around and walked down the hall. This time I left her standing in the doorway. And she didn't follow. Not because she respected the silence, but because, deep down, she knew she'd finally lost something that wouldn't crawl back. 2 weeks. That's how long it took for the dust to start settling. Not everywhere, she was still spiraling, still trying to plug the holes in her narrative with charm and desperation, but in me, something had gone quiet. A different kind of silence. Not the hollow kind she used to leave in our house when she'd go for a drive and come back with perfume on her neck and stories with missing timestamps. The silence had weight. It had shape. And for the first time since the moment that photo dropped into my inbox, I felt the ground under my feet again. But she wasn't done. Oh no. She'd been too careful with her image for too long. She'd spent years building up this idea of herself in the eyes of her friends, her family, her coworkers. The girl who never asked for much, who was always so strong, who just wanted to be loved the right way. And now? That image was bleeding from all sides. She started reaching out to people I hadn't talked to in years, my people, trying to find a backdoor into the version of the story she could still control. A guy I used to play poker with texted me, "Hey man, your wife hit me up. She said you misunderstood something. That you overreacted." I didn't even reply. Why would I? I'd lived the misunderstanding. I'd eaten dinner across from it. Slept beside it. Paid bills with it. Loved it. But I wasn't going to fight her narrative anymore. I didn't need to. The truth had its own legs now. It had wandered off into the world and started speaking without me. The real surprise came on a Thursday morning. Ava, her sister, showed up at my apartment. No warning. Just a knock. And there she was, standing in the hallway, arms crossed, hoodie up, face unreadable. "I figured you wouldn't answer if I called," she said. She wasn't wrong. I let her in. She didn't sit down. She didn't even take her shoes off. Just stood there in the center of the room, turning slowly like she was mapping it. My new life. My blank canvas. "She's losing it," she said finally. "Told Mom you've been stalking her." That stopped me cold. "What?" Ava nodded, pulling out her phone. She scrolled, then handed it to me. There it was. A group chat. Her and a few family members. My ex, let's just stop calling her my wife at this point, had sent a series of voice messages, dramatic and breathy, talking about how she was scared for her safety, how I was obsessed with punishing her, how I couldn't let go. She even said she feared for what he might do next. I handed the phone back. Ava looked at me. Quiet. Like she was waiting for me to combust. Instead, I laughed. Not loud. Just this low, bitter kind of laugh. The kind you let out when a magic trick finally reveals the wires. She really thinks she can play the victim card, I said. She's playing the whole deck, Ava replied. And Mom's buying it. Some of her friends, too. I sent the truth to a few people. I thought it'd be enough. It was, she said, for the ones who know her. But there's always people who'd rather believe a lie if it fits their favorite version of someone. I nodded. I knew those people. I'd been one of them. Do you need help? Ava asked. Like, actually? With this. I looked at her for a long second. Her face was serious. Steady. She wasn't doing this out of pity. She just didn't want to see another body get buried under her sister's emotional landslide. I'm good, I said. I just want to live. Then keep receipts, she said, deadpan. She's spiraling. And people in freefall grab onto anything, even if they have to drag it down with them. She left not long after. And that night, I did something I hadn't done since before everything burned down. I slept. No dreams. No panic. Just sleep. But when I woke up the next morning, my phone was vibrating. No number. No name. I answered anyway. The voice on the other end was quiet. Male? You don't know me, he said. But I think we have something in common. And just like that, the next layer peeled back. I stepped out onto the balcony with the phone still pressed to my ear, heart hammering but slow. Controlled. Like my body knew this was going to hurt but had already accepted the blow. Who are you? I asked. The man on the line hesitated. I could hear the nervous inhale through the receiver. Then he said his name. It meant nothing to me. Until he said hers. She told me she was divorced. Said you were toxic, that you tried to control her. We've been seeing each other for a few months. I didn't speak. He continued. She said you'd stalked her. That you ruined her last relationship and you might come after me too. But he stopped himself. His voice cracked just slightly. Last night, she showed up at my place. Screaming. Crying. Saying you sent people after her. She was frantic. I've never seen someone come undone that fast. Still, I said nothing. Because there was nothing to say. This was her playbook. Rotating cast. Same script. New stage. He spoke again, softer now. But here's the thing, she slipped up. She said something weird. Called me the wrong name. My jaw clenched. He kept going. It wasn't the first time. I didn't think much of it before, but I started putting things together. And I found your name. Found the story. The photo. I know now. I wanted to tell you, man. You're not crazy. And just like that, there it was. Another one. Another man sold a dream only to wake up in her maze of stories and missing timelines and false alarms. I thanked him genuinely. Told him to walk away while he still could. He said he was already packing. Before hanging up, he said she's not just lying. She believes it when she says it. That's the scariest part. He was right. And yet somehow I felt calm. I'd been bracing for this chapter. The part where the lies compound, mutate, fold in on themselves like bad origami until even she couldn't tell what was real. I thought she'd hit bottom already, but no. She was still digging. Later that day, I got an email. Anonymous. No subject. Inside, a screenshot. A thread on some private Facebook group, one of those support spaces for survivors of narcissistic abuse. Guess who the latest featured storyteller was? She'd posted a carefully curated version of our marriage. Said I was emotionally manipulative. That I'd isolated her. That she wasn't even allowed to have male friends. She described how she finally broke free from her controlling husband and had to rebuild herself from the ground up. Her story was gaining traction. Dozens of comments praising her bravery. I closed the email. No reply. No retaliation. Why? Because she was doing the one thing I no longer had to. Perform. Every lie she told now was oxygen she needed to keep her version of the world afloat. Every post, every message, every desperate pivot in tone, it was all a flailing attempt to control what was already gone. Me? I was done. But the universe wasn't. That night, I got a call from my old neighbor, Steve, the guy next door who always offered to mow my lawn when I was working weekends. We hadn't spoken in months. Hey man, he said, voice cautious. Just wanted to let you know she came by the house today. I froze. She asked if you'd been around. Said she left something behind and needed to get it. But she was off. Kept saying weird things. Talking to herself a little. Honestly, she looked like she hadn't slept. I thanked him and hung up. I stared at the wall. Then I got up, went to my new closet, opened a small wooden box I hadn't touched since the move. Inside were my journals. Real ones. Nothing dramatic. Just notes. Observations. Daily records of things I used to question, little gut feelings I wrote off. Dates she came home late. Weird stories that didn't add up. Voicemails she deleted. Password changes. Late-night calls she claimed were from her cousin. One by one, they all started lining up. And now? Now I had more than memories. I had a timeline. And whether or not I used it didn't matter. What mattered was that she no longer controlled the story. She could scream into the void all she wanted. But the truth? The truth already had its seat at the table. And it wasn't leaving. The next time she showed up, I was ready. It was a Tuesday. Midday. Sky the color of cold steel. I was standing in the kitchen, heating up leftover soup, the kind of moment that's supposed to be boring, comforting, even. Then the knock came. Not loud. Not desperate. Just deliberate. I didn't check the peephole. I didn't need to. I opened the door, and there she was, coat unzipped, hair knotted like she hadn't touched it in days, eyes glassy and wild like she'd finally run out of mirrors to lie to. You ignored my messages, she said. You sent 37, I replied. None of them had anything new in them. She tried to smile. Tried to soften her posture. Tilted her head slightly, that practice curve she always used when she wanted to be the girl you forgave just for existing. But it didn't land. Not anymore. Can I come in? No, I said. But you can talk. That flicker in her eyes. Like she didn't think I'd say no. Not her. Not the one who could always wrap the story back around to sympathy. I need to explain things. You've had months to explain. Instead, you tried to turn me into a villain to save your role. I was hurting. No. You were hiding. She took a step closer, but I didn't move. People are turning on me, she said. And there it was again. That same script. Different costume. They think I'm some monster. I never told anyone what to think, I said. I just handed them the part you tore out of the book. She blinked. You ruined me. I gave you the space to ruin yourself. You just filled in the blanks. Her voice got sharper. So this is about revenge? No. It's about clarity. You spent years feeding people a version of you that only worked if I stayed silent. She looked over my shoulder, like maybe someone else would appear behind me. Someone who'd mediate this moment. Someone who'd make it easier. But there was no one. Just me. And her. And the vacuum left between two people when the lies stopped working. Then she did something I hadn't expected. She dropped the act. Just let it fall. The sigh came first, long, slow, like she'd been holding her breath for months. Then, I didn't think it would go this far. Funny, I said. You weren't thinking at all when you were in his bed. That wasn't real. He wasn't you. I didn't want him. I needed something that wasn't this. You needed a mirror, I said. Not a partner. That stunned her. For a beat, she looked like she was about to cry. But nothing came. No tears. Just that twitch in her lip she always had when the lie was half-built but not quite ready to launch. I want to make it right, she whispered. You can't. She flinched. Why not? Because this wasn't a moment. This was a pattern. And I lived in the silence between your decisions. She stared at me, waiting for the soft ending. The line that turns the scene back into a romance. Instead, I stepped back and pointed at the photo frame on the hallway table. She turned. There it was. A new photo. Me, my brother, Eva, a few friends, laughing, clinking glasses. The kind of picture you don't take unless you're free. See that? I said. That's what I look like without you. She stared at it like it was a crime scene. I should have left earlier, I said. I should have left the first time you came home late and smiled like nothing was off. Her voice cracked. I didn't know how to be alone. But you knew how to lie. She stepped back. For the first time, I saw something real on her face. Not regret. Not sadness. Fear. Because now she knew. There was nothing left to twist. No more angles to control. The version of me she relied on, the one who would have taken the blame just to keep the peace. That man was gone. Dead, buried, and reborn. And in his place stood someone who wasn't angry anymore. Just done. She didn't say goodbye. She just walked away. And for once, she didn't look back. The last message she ever sent me was 6 words. Please don't tell anyone else. Please. No apology. No ownership. Just that thin, trembling plea, half command, half beg. The kind of message someone sends when their hands are finally slipping off the ledge and they know no one's going to catch them this time. I didn't respond. Not because I was trying to punish her or ghost her or keep some final thread of power. I didn't respond because there was nothing left to say. I deleted her number that night. Deleted the message too. Not out of anger, but because keeping it felt like giving her one last room to live in inside my head. And I'd spent long enough letting her set the furniture in there. That was 3 months ago. Since then, I moved. Again. Out of the city. Got a place with wide windows and real quiet. Not the suffocating kind we used to have between fake smiles and cold dinners. The kind of quiet that lets you hear the wind at night. Your own breathing. Your own thoughts. I got new habits. I go for walks now. Early. When the light hasn't quite committed to the sky. I keep a journal not to track her lies this time, but to remind myself of the truth. The simple kind. What I ate. Who I spoke to. What I felt when a song came on. Ava and I talk sometimes. Not often. But she checks in. She says her sister's story has shifted again. Apparently now I was emotionally unavailable and she never had the space to grow. She says it with an eye roll I can hear through the phone. Neither of us bothers to argue anymore. Because here's what I've learned. People who build themselves out of lies always have to keep building. Brick after brick of illusion until eventually the whole thing collapses under its own weight. But people who lose everything? We get to build real things again. Solid things. I've started over. And yeah, there are days I still feel the sting. Some nights where I wake up and my brain, out of old habit, reaches for the sound of her key in the lock or the fake laugh from across the house. But I let those moments pass. I don't fight them. Because I'm not pretending anymore. That's what it was, really. That was the worst part of all of it. Not the betrayal. Not the lies. Not even the photo. It was the pretending. Years of it. Stretched smiles. Mechanical kisses. Holding my breath every time I said, "Are we okay?" And she said, of course, without blinking. So here's my advice to anyone reading this, anyone standing in the doorway of doubt, holding your breath, wondering if it's just in your head. It's not. You know when something's rotting. You smell it before you see it. You feel it in the silence, in the pauses between their sentences. You feel it in how their eyes slide past yours. In the little things they use to do that stop happening without reason. And if they lie, they're not confused. They're not lost. They're not on a journey. They're choosing. And the longer you stay, the longer you keep giving them clean hands to dirty. Leave. Pack the truth with you. Let it sting. And then live. Like actually live without the weight of carrying someone who'd rather burn you than be seen for who they really are. As for her, let her keep her mirrors. Let her scream her version of the story into every hallway she can find. Because eventually even she will run out of listeners. And I'll still be here. Quiet. Whole. Free.